All right. Hey, y'all. Let's get started. Welcome, everybody, to another webinar hosted by Metaltoad and AWS. Today, we'll be talking about Amazon Lex and some chatbot services, what they are, solutions you can build with them, and ultimately how Metaltoad and Amazon can help you get started with. Today, covering these topics will be solutions architect and GenAI specialist from AWS, KK Neelampudi. We have engineering team lead from Metaltoad, Simon Scudder, and myself. Hi, I'm David Dolan. I'm an engineering team lead from Metaltoad as well. We'll cover the agenda right now, and then I'll give kind of a quick intro to Metaltoad and upcoming events. Then I'll hand things over to Simon to walk us through how him and his team built a chatbot for a company hackathon. After reviewing our case study, Simon will hand things over to KK to talk about chatbot services in AWS. And then we can close out talking about POC funding opportunities in AWS and any questions. So Metaltoad is a full-service cloud consultancy. As an AWS Advanced partner, we've worked with many customers like Daimler, Siemens Gamesa, Claviet, to solve complex data analytics and ML problems. Beyond our data solutions catalog, we also consistently deliver and support consumer-facing applications for industry leaders like the Grammys, DC Comics, ABC, Wheel of Fortune, and more. Metaltoad has received awards for being a wonderful place to work, to which I can attest. I believe the positive experiences translate to also making us a fantastic partner to work with. Before we dive in, let me just take a moment to call out our upcoming webinars. Looks like slated for July 2nd, we'll dive into customizing Bedrock models. And on September 10th, we're planning to discuss age detection with recognition. Awesome. So I'll hand things over to Simon, who's here to share a case study with us.
Okay, thanks for that introduction, David. I'm Simon Scudder. I've been a team lead here at Metaltoad for almost 3 years. And a couple of months ago, we had a company hackathon, and my team's project was to improve something called Chatbot, which responds on a Slack channel congratulating people for work well done. We had 2.5 days to get it done from scratch. So let's start by taking a quick look at what Chatbot could do and how we wanted to improve it. Well, Chatbot's an internal Slack channel. It's used to congratulate team members. So there's a person that you want to congratulate and a reason you're congratulating the person. So I would say something like, shout out to David for introducing the webinar, and Chatbot would respond, David has 1 point for introducing the webinar. And then somebody else can come along and type in ++ or me too, and that would increase the points. And then we get a response like David Dolan has 2 points for introducing the webinar. And when somebody else adds a different shout out for somebody else and another reason, the ++ has increased points for the new nomination. And the improvements that we wanted to do on Lex for Chatbot 2024 were being able to nominate or congratulate more than one person at the same time. So if I want to say congratulate David and Natalie, I couldn't do that previously. And we also wanted to add some rules to the pointing. So I can't nominate myself, and I can't vote when somebody nominates me. And when I vote, I can only vote once. The previous generation of Chatbot that we were using, I could sit down all afternoon and just clicking ++, ++, ++, and it would just be increasing the points. And finally, we wanted to be able to ask Chatbot the ranking for the period, let's say a month or a year, and see who's had more congratulations. And click. This is a sample of what a conversation with Chatbot would look like. Simon says, congratulations to Chris for a great blog post. And Chatbot responds, Chris has 1 for a great blog post. Perhaps we can add the word points in there in the response, improve it a bit. Click. And here's a quick overview of the chatbot architecture. We have Slack, talking to Lex, and that's one of the built-in integrations available. And then Lex fires off a Lambda, which saves some stuff like names, votes, and point totals in a DynamoDB table. Nice and simple. Let's take a deeper look at Lex then. Click. Lex is a conversational AI or chatbot engine. It understands text requests and speech requests, so you can interact with it by typing or sending audio for it to understand. Sorry. On the free tier, it can handle up to 10,000 text requests a month or 5,000 speech requests, and that's for up to a year. And I've got a couple of technical terms there that we need to know. The first off is intent. And you can think of intent as a situation like placing an order or asking for directions. You enter phrases and Lex will look up amongst all of your intents and try to find the best match for it to understand what it is you want. And in a minute, we're going to take a look at Chatbot 2024's intents. And you specify an intent by using sample phrases. And the matching, it isn't word for word. It uses artificial intelligence to figure out what you mean, and it understands grammar. So you can change the verb to something similar and it will understand, and so on. So if you have an intent for ordering pizza, and the example is, I want to order a pizza, Chatbot will automatically understand it if you say, I want to request a pizza instead of order. And that brings us to another technical term, which is utterances. And these are example phrases for your intent. And one of the great things that we have in Lex is the little magic button that calls AWS Bedrock and can write automatically more examples for us. More on that in a minute. And finally, we have a third thing called slots, which are like variables that are filled out during the intent. In our case, we've got a person and we've got a reason. If you're filling out an order for a pizza, you can have the toppings and the delivery address, for example. Click. Okay, now that's aside, here are Chatbot 2024's intents. And first thing, you always have a fallback intent, which is called if Lex can't understand what you're saying. So you can add a friendly message like, I don't know how to do that, or I don't know anything about that. I think Alexa answers something like that. Or I'm sorry, could you please rephrase that? And this is called if Lex's internal confidence on the intent is below a certain threshold in percentages. So if it's say 20% sure that you want to request the ranking, it will go to the fallback intent because it's below this threshold. And in Chatbot, we've got another 3 intents, one for congratulating or nominating a person, and that's going to save the name and the reason in the database. Or if you're paying attention in the previous slides, the intent will fill out some slots, and our Lambda will save these in a database. And that's the shout out person intent. And we've got an intent there for increasing the points. So if I say ditto or me too or plus plus or just congratulations, it understands it has to give a person a point. And we call that one the increment. And finally, we've got the ranking intent, which is where I get a list of people, points and reasons, and we called that ranking. Click. The conversation inside the intent can call a Lambda at certain steps, like initialization, validation, and fulfillment. You just have to select which Lambda and which version you want to call. And the Lambda, it will receive a package from Lex which says, what's the intent, what's the confidence, what are all the slot values, what's the status, and it will then, it's up to you to have if statements inside the Lambda and execute what you want it to do for what steps and for what intents. So the fulfillment step, or where I've got to finish everything off for the shout out person, it would save the name and the reason in the database and give that person 1 point. Click. And here we have the utterances, which were those sample phrases for the shout out person intent. So if we look at the first one there, we can say @David ++ for a great introduction. Notice that in some places here, we've got different colored areas of the phrases. And that's just showing us different slots that are going to be filled out. So we've got a name slot and a reason slot in these examples here. And I've got 6 different ways that I thought up that I could start to congratulate a person, like shout out to David for a great introduction, or congratulate David for a great introduction, and so on. And if I click on that magic button up there in the top right where it says generate utterances, if you want to click David, here we have 5 new samples that were written by generative AI, by Bedrock. And they're different ways that Bedrock thinks I could ask for the same thing. It took my examples and thought of different ways to say the same thing. And the generate utterances button, it will give you 5 new examples. But if you save this, you can click on the button again, it will give you another 5, and then you save the intent again and click on generate utterances and it give you another 5. And you might think, oh, let's go crazy and make up lots and lots of different phrases. That can actually be negative, because the more samples you have for any one intent, it will make Lex bias towards that. So if I've got like 100 different examples here, it will tend to think that most things are sample utterances are classified as shout out person, if I don't have more or less a balanced number of utterances and the other intents. We used around 10 examples for each, and that worked out okay for us, but it's something that you have to play around with. It depends on how complex the phrases are that you want it to understand, and so on. Click. Remember, I was talking about slots. Lex comes with several built-in slot types. So I can have a slot type for address, phone number, zip code, name, and so on. And Lex will automatically be able to identify that inside the phrase. In our case, Slack sends us a username with an @ and then it's got some letters and numbers in the front. So we just took a whole load of different users that Slack sent us and used them as samples for a name slot that we created, which is a custom slot type. We also created a custom slot type for reason. We'll see that in a minute. One thing that you can do is use the sample values for a slot as examples or as exact values. So if I want to make a pizza or order a pizza, and I've got a list of toppings, I can say it has to be specifically one of the values that I put in, and you're not using it as an example value. It has to be that exact value. So here in Brazil, we've got hundreds of different types of pizzas, pizza toppings, even stroganoff and hot dog pizzas. So we can add a list of all these toppings, and Lex will expect one of these options as a topping. And if Lex can't extract a value for the slot, you can add a prompt, and it will ask you, for example, if it can't understand the name of the person, here it says, it asks me back, who is the shout out for? Please use @username when identifying the person. And Lex will only move on to the fulfillment stage of an intent when it fills in all the required slots. So if I just say kudos to David, Lex can't figure out the reason. So Lex will then answer me, why do you want to congratulate David? And I can say, for a great introduction. And it will know that David has got a congratulations, a shout out for a great introduction. And if you want, you can add a confirmation phase in the middle there. So if I'm ordering the pizza, you can say, do you confirm you want a chili, cheese, and lettuce pizza? And no accounting for bad taste there. And so on. So click. Here are the sample values for the reason slot, and we just added a whole load of different reasons that have nothing to do with each other so that Lex would understand it's kind of open-ended. And another thing, slots can hold a single value or they can hold an array. So if I want to use an array of people so that I can congratulate more than one person at a time, I have a setting inside the slots called multi-value slot. And I just have to tick that, and it will automatically extract from the name various different parts in there. It understands, for example, if I say, congratulations to David, Natalie, and Joaquin, it would understand that there are 3 people there and send the 3 values in an array for me. Click. The intent doesn't finish, like I said, until all the required steps, all the required slots are full, and then we fall into the fulfillment step. Click again. And looking back at the architecture diagram, Lexes understand what is being said and classifying it. But remember I said we have a little bit of logic that we want to do, so that I can't vote for myself and I can't vote more than once. That kind of stuff we put inside the Lambda, so that it will test the values, and it will take the slot values and read what's in the DynamoDB and make sure that I'm not voting for myself and so on. And to give it a little bit of personality, the Lambda will respond. If I try and vote for myself, it'll say, naughty, naughty, you're not supposed to vote for yourself, and so on. Well, thanks for letting me show you a little bit of the workings of Lex. And I forgot to mention that Lex has built-in out-of-the-box integration with Slack, Facebook, and Twilio at the moment. And now I'm going to hand it over to KK.
Hey, thanks, Simon. And yeah, thanks for the wonderful explanation about the architecture and all. And it looks cool. I want to try it out too. Yeah, today I want to talk about Amazon Q. And it's a generative AI powered assistant for accelerating software development and leveraging companies' internal data, right? And as you see on the screen, it went GA recently. That's on April 30th of 2024. And it not only generates a highly accurate code, it also tests, debugs, adds multiple steps, planning, reasoning capabilities that can transform maybe like let's say you have a legacy Java code, right? Maybe it's an older version. So you want to just upgrade it and it can do it for you. So it can implement new code generations and from the developer requests, right? Not only that, it can also help ease employee productivity. So like to get answers to questions across your business data, such as your company's policies, product information, business results, code base, employees, and many other topics within your organization. All of this can be done by connecting your enterprise data repositories to Amazon Q. And as of today, we support around 40 plus integrations, and something which is not supported, you can directly create a custom connector also. We have given support for that as well. So let's look into Click. Yeah. If you see here, there's a generative AI stack. I'm unhighlighting the last two purposefully because I want to mainly, as the webinar is about chatbots, I want to highlight mainly the last layer, that is the applications leveraging LLMs and other FMs. So there you see Amazon Q Builder, Q Developer, Q QuickSight, and Connect, right? So Amazon Q wears multiple hats and with multiple personas. So let's say you're a developer, you wanna do code-based things, then you have Q Developer. And let's say you're just a business user and you just wanna do Q&A session, then you have Q Business that integrates with your repositories, internal data, right? And then you have QuickSight, that's our BI layer. And if you want to do some BI arrangements like creating visuals or executive summaries for your business executives, then there you have Q again integrating with QuickSight. And let's say you're from support side and you want to have live transcriptions and understand what policies will better fit the customer you have. So there you have integration with Connect as well. So that's where it plays a vital role. And just touching on the topic of Amazon Bedrock, which Simon also used in his example in the chatbot, right? So Bedrock has more like around 5 models which are currently being supported, and it's accessible via an API. I believe Simon is using one of those API, one of those LLMs underneath. So yeah, and click. Yeah, I just want to quickly highlight the QuickSight Q capabilities, which I already talked briefly. But yeah, here if you see, Amazon Q capabilities for developing an IT pros are available through Amazon Q Builder Plan to help write, debug, test, and transform the code, such as moving from old version to new version, which I already mentioned. And Q also provides capabilities for every employee with the Amazon Q business plan can connect to their customer data repositories, answer questions, summarize data, carry on conversations, and take action. So all of this is in your natural language. You just type it out and it's going to give a response based on that. And as I already mentioned, we also have integrations with QuickSight and also with Q and Supply Chain and Q and Connect as well. So yeah, like all services, Q was also designed with security and privacy in mind from the start, and making it easier for organizations to use GenAI safely. So that's what I wanted to talk about today. And thanks for the opportunity, Simon. Um, yeah, let's move on to the POC funding.
Awesome. Thank you, KK. Maybe before we hop into the POC funding, I do see we've got some questions in the chat. I'll just kind of start at the top. First question I saw come in was asking about, I think this is related to how Lex works, but is this powered by Lambda and does it scale?
It can be scaled infinitely, but however, we wouldn't want like man-in-the-middle attacks. So we ideally want to limit it so we can have guardrails around that place. So technically, yes, it can scale.
Okay. The next one that I see is it's related to generating utterances in Lex. Do we know which model is actually being used in Bedrock to generate the utterances?
I think Simon can answer that.
Yeah, it's configured at the moment to use Claude V2.
Okay, V2. Let's see.
You can configure the model though.
We had some questions about hot dog pizza, but I don't think those can be answered, at least accurately at this time.
It's a real thing. They actually do have them in Brazil.
Awesome. All right, let's talk about funding opportunities with AWS and Metaltoad. Joaquin, do you want to hop in on this, or do you want me to take it?
Yeah, sure, I'd be happy to.
Awesome.
So this is funding that is available not only for generative AI, but really any category of new work that an existing customer or a new customer would want to accomplish. So there's a couple pieces here in terms of what is a POC or what is proof of concept. So it's a small scale project for customers that are looking to start something new on AWS. So if you, for example, perfect example would be a generative AI exploration. That would be a great example of something that AWS would actually want to help you fund. What this is when you work with a consulting partner like Metaltoad, we can go through, figure out what the calculator would be in terms of figuring out what the actual predicted spend would be. And then AWS writes a check for 10% of that. So say you have a new workload that might unlock $100,000 of annual spending on AWS. AWS will write a check for $10,000 to create a proof of concept. We've done this a number of times for different customers. It's a fantastic way to explore a new workload. There's no commitment to actually use that workload, but it can also answer a lot of questions in terms of what is the specific cost on a per token basis or on a per workload basis, not just the overall, but will this be a viable business model? So for that to be accessible, you have to work with a qualifying partner. Obviously, Metaltoad is a qualifying partner. There are a number of other consulting partners that can help with that work, but they have to be able to provide credible history of being able to deliver for the specific workload being engaged. There is an upper limit of $25,000 in terms of the checks that Amazon will write. But there are actually even more generous opportunities for larger spend. So cash is paid on completion, credits are issued up front. And the only other thing to know if you're interested in pursuing a proof of concept is it does require some pre-approval. So it needs to be framed, put in place. And then we can help you figure out if that Gen AI workload that you've been thinking about will actually be able to work in real life.
Awesome. Thank you, Joaquin. It looks like a few more questions did roll in, so I'll just grab these right now. Question related to Lex and its integrations. Do we know if Lex is able to integrate with other services like Microsoft Teams, for example?
Yes, we have APIs to integrate it with it. So yeah.
Awesome. And then specifically related to the hackathon project, were there any challenges that you ran into while using Lex or any part of that?
Yeah, one of the challenges was that we only had 2.5 days to do it, and we was intending to use generative AI to make up a certificate for the highest ranking people, but we didn't have time enough to do that. And some of the options were a bit obscure in the documentation. But in the end, we found everything and got everything up and working. And after the first day of the hackathon, we already had practically everything in place. And the second day, we were tuning the Lambda, but most of the Lex work, it didn't even actually take 2.5 days. It probably took about a day and a half. So it's a great tool to work with.
Excellent. Thank you, Simon. I think I've grabbed all the questions. So let me just leave us here. Thank you so much, everybody, for attending. Please, if you have further questions or if you're interested in how Metaltoad might assist you with your chatbot or larger AWS needs, drop Stacy an email, stacygordon@metaltoad.com. She's wonderful, knowledgeable, and happy to help get you started. Thanks, everybody.